Okay, so I wanted to do a little video to show you my system and how I have configured hardware and software. Uh, Basically, this is all stuff that I've learned through cloudy nights and Facebook groups and over the past 10 years. I guess it's been longer than that, probably closer to 20. But in any case, when you're trying to put things together, you're always wondering if there is a more optimal way to do things. So I'd like to show you how I'm doing it. You might be doing it differently. You might find you get better results. If you do, please let me know. Also, if I make any errors, also please bring those to my attention. So, first thing that I'll show you is the scope setup and how I'm physically configured here. And here I have an outside pier, and outside there is a 3-inch conduit which runs into the house, which is where I am. And I am currently in front of a 3-screen monitor. Here's the actual imaging scope uncovered. It's a C11 on a C-GEM mount. I have the ASI 1600 MC Pro camera. I'm using a 6.3 focal reducer. Here's a JMI focus controller. This has 2 wires and basically is just a stepper motor. But this leads inside to the house where I have a hand controller where I can change focus on the primary mirror. Next is an 8600 guide scope, and on that I'm using the ASI 224 MC camera as my guiding camera. I had been using a Starshoot auto guider. This is giving me much better performance out of this, and usually color cameras aren't your best choice for an auto guider. Let's see. Okay, so there's the scope, and hopefully you understand the physical connections. There are 3 USB 2.0 cables that go to that. Let's see. Here is what we're looking at inside. A dirty desk. My dog Luna. Here you can see the scope through the window and a 3 monitor setup. I'm using a very, very low end i3 computer, but it's working amazingly for me. I'm really surprised that it's able to do all that I put to it. It's a little bit slower, but it's an i3. It has 8 gig of RAM. It has a 250 gigabyte solid state drive, which is used as my scratch drive, and it's used for all the downloaded data coming in from the cameras. So it goes directly to a solid state drive. It comes in through a USB 3.0 card that has 4 ports on it. I have each individual device hooked up to a different USB cable. I haven't had really great success with hubs, especially hubs at distances. But I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I just I have the cables run, and it's not that big of a deal. I have found that I was not able to use the auto guider camera hooked into the hub that's on the 1600 camera. There's a hub built into it, but I've had no luck really being able to get that camera to run through that hub. I know that I'm getting power out of it, but in any case, like I said, I have the cables run, so I have the 3 USB 2.0 cables, and they are all active cables. Very, very important with the distance on these cables that they be active. I have one 3.0 cable run. It's temporarily run right now. You can see it running out the window. But that 3.0 cable is powered at the other end. And I believe it's 4.5 volts that they power that with. But that should make sending the signal and boosting the signal a lot better. Okay, so I have gone out and I have pulled the cover off of the scope, and I have aligned on. Actually, I powered on the scope and came out of hibernation. Every night before I shut down the scope, I go to the home position, which is pointing north, and I then go into hibernation mode. Let me go ahead and connect this. I'm connecting the auto guider. I'm connecting with the ASI 224 camera. The mount is on camera, and I also have a serial. One of the USB cables is carrying a USB to serial converter, which is used to connect to the handset of the mount. So I'll just go ahead and connect all my graphs and everything are on the other screen, but I'll just give you an idea here. This is Altair, and this is at 1/10 of a second. At 1 second, we should be getting quite a few stars, and you can see Altair here is pretty well blown out, saturated. So I'll bring it down to 1/2 a second. Okay, so you can see even at 1/2 a second, I'm still getting good stars in that area. If I drop it down to 0.2, I could probably guide off one of these. Yeah, I don't think there would be an issue at all guiding off of that, actually. The scene tonight is very bad, or should I say, the scene tonight is bad. No, I'm sorry, the scene tonight is poor. Yes, it's poor. It was last night I did some imaging, and it was bad. But I was kind of surprised at some of the data that I was able to get. Let's see, I should have no cloud cover up until 2 o'clock. So I'm going to try and do some imaging. I'm going to first show you how I'm going to acquire and get on the targets. I'm going to be using Sequence Generator Pro. Let me go ahead and move this over to my other screen and bring up Sequence Generator Pro. Now, I did image M81 last night, and this is where I'm at with 100 light frames Here's at 100% magnification. Let's see, I shot 100 light frames for a total of 3 hours, and stacked all in DSS and then processed in Photoshop. Here's a example of the layers which I use in order to come up with this. The image that I start off with coming out of DSS is looking more like this, and this is after I've brought the saturation up, and also I have aligned the RGB channels. It almost seems like you could run this 20 different times and align your channels 20 different times, and you would come out with 20 variants of the same image. But in any case, it's what I've been using. I've tried Pixel Insight, and I just wasn't able to get into the workflow. I've been working with Photoshop since its first release back in the 90s. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. And sequence generator has started up. Now, I want to image M82, but I'm not so sure that it's visible right now. So what I'm going to do is let's do a test target here. I'll go ahead and show you how I'm working with this. I'm going to go into the framing and mosaic wizards. I don't believe much in magic, but here you go. So we'll put in NGC 7023, and this is the Iris Nebula. I want to get a field of view that I can do a good overlay on. I had a problem with my image scale, and that caused me not to be able to do certain things, centering on the object, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and close this sequence window, but we can see that there is a plate solved image of the Iris Nebula. So I don't want that. I want one frame and one frame because they will all fit. Okay, so I don't know how well this is going to show up on your screen, but let me go ahead and zoom in. There indeed is the Iris Nebula. Okay. Another piece of software that I use is Stellarium, and here we can see the Iris Nebula, and this is the sensor that I'm using. These are all set up in the ocular section, and it's on the C11 with a 6.3 focal reducer. If I didn't have the focal reducer on there, whoops, that's with the Barlow, 2x Barlow, no focal reducer, and then the 6.3 focal reducer. So it gives you a good idea of the field of view. Of course, all these are configurable in here as far as sensors, telescopes, etc. Okay. One thing that I've done in Stellarium, and I've utilized their landscapes feature, which is kind of a cool feature because Again, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, so I'm going to go ahead and speed it up like it was daytime. Actually, I probably should have gone the other way. Okay, so this is a 360-degree view of where my telescope sets. And if you check out the landscapes feature within Stellarium, you can figure out how to do this. But anyways, it gives me a good idea of what's in the night sky, what's going to be coming up over the house. And I tend to do a lot of imaging up in here. Okay, so that's Stellarium. I don't use a connection within Stellarium anymore for telescope control, even though at one time I used to use Stellarium, but I think I'm fine with the simple ASCOM hand controller. Okay, so we're gonna again try to get this NGC 7023. So go ahead and get this out of the way. 7023. I'm going to go ahead and create a sequence with this. Okay, so I want to replace the targets in the sequence that I have because I started up with a new sequence, so there wasn't anything anyways. So I'm going to replace the targets, and now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to bring the auto guider back over so you can see what's going on with it. I'm going to go ahead and connect the camera over here, connect the telescope mount over here. As soon as I connected the camera, it should start cooling down. That's the way that I have configured it for myself in here. And also I use this open weather map in order to get at least some data. It doesn't give me everything. It doesn't give me sky quality, scene, and such, but I get that from another site. Okay, so right now we have our NGC 7023. I'm going to create some light frames. So let's say I want to do a 60-second exposure here. I'm going to leave this binning at 1.1 or 1 by 1, and that should be gain of 139. That's unity gain for that particular camera. I'm going to say repeat this 5 times, and then actually let me do a 30-second, and then, or how about this, 5 and 5, we'll do 15 seconds to make it so that it's quick, and we want 15s, and 30s, and both of them are checked. I'm going to have it rotate through the sequences, and this is what I'll usually do. This is what I was doing last night, where I had 60-second, 120-second, 180-second, and 240-second subs, and it would go through, start off with the 60-second, go to the 120, and then it would go to the 180, and then to the 240, and then it'll loop back around until the sequences are completely finished. So I'm going to go ahead, and right now my scope is still fitting at Altair, so I'm going to have it go ahead and slew to this location, because it was plate solved just prior. So all that data is in here, and the mount should know where it's at now. So we'll go ahead and slew 2. And right now the telescope is moving. And we can see, I can see some star movement. Okay, there we go. We've got one star right there. Now, I don't know that that is 100% lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go into frame and focus and say, give me a 1 second image, and take one. It downloads, analyzes the star data, and then okay, it's downloaded and it's performed a low stretch. Now I happen to know that this right here, because I can just make out a little bit of the nebulosity within NGC 7023. So it is indeed not centered. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here, and now I'm going to say center. Now what centering will do is it's going to go into take an image of where it's at, look at the plate solved image, and it's capturing that new image right now to tell where it's at. Then plate solve's going to kick in, and it's going to start searching. Okay, it found it pretty quick because it was able to start its search from that area, and it does a circular search. The first attempt to center failed. I'm at a really high focal length, 1764 millimeter, so it's a little bit tougher to center. Okay, so it went ahead and it succeeded. So we'll go ahead and say done here, and I'm going to run the sequence. Oh, okay. Error. Okay. This has to do with within the target about camera rotation. If I wanted to get a different view of that, then I could change my camera orientation. So I'm going to go ahead and run sequence. And it's going to go ahead and center again because the sequence had that ticked to you can have it automatically slew to the target and then automatically center on the target. I was doing it manually, but if you had, say, multiple targets in your sequence window, then you can have it automatically when a sequence completes and it goes to the next target, it'll automatically slew to it and then automatically center on that target. Okay, so it went ahead and kicked the auto guider on, and it picked a star, and right now we're guiding. Now I'm going to move the guider out of the way. We don't need to see that. We can tell it is. I definitely need to bump up the Yeah, there we go. I had to bump up the auto guider speed. I was at 0.01 seconds, and I really want to be at about 1 second. 1 second's about the slowest, or rather, it's about the fastest that I want to go. Otherwise, I seem to be chasing scene. This came up, paused for focus. Well, I was out earlier and I focused, did a star focus with a Batnov mask. So I'm going to say okay here. Paused for focus. We're going to go ahead and resume because we've already done that. And the auto guider's already settled down, so it's already integrating its first image. And that first image is a 15-second sub. It's a light frame. And as soon as it finishes downloading, it's going to display it. And here is the Iris Nebula. This is at 100%. Stars are pretty round. Like I said, seeing is not very good. But let's see. Okay, so here is, you have different ways that you can stretch it. I have it doing an auto stretch on it. I can stretch it high and see how much additional data is in there. You can see from this is a full frame in the window. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and go to fit to screen, and you can see the vignetting. I'm going to go ahead and stretch it high, and that way you should be able to see even more. You can see the vignetting. You can also see the sensor noise, getting some sensor noise here and down here. On this particular camera, it seems like it's all the way around on the edges, versus with, like, say, the DSLR that I was using, it seemed like the amp glow was coming real heavy from one side. But in any case, that is how I am set up. Now, Sequence Generator Pro is very similar to other applications in that never have enough hard drive space. Here's my SD card, or not SD card, my SD, or solid state hard drive rather. Okay, so it creates a light frames, flat frames, dark frames, bias frames file, depending on the type of file that you're creating. I have this grouped by type, sorted by date. So these are the last ones coming in. These are the frames that we're just shooting. And that's about it. So if you have any feedback on ways that I might improve my process, or things that have helped you or need more explanation, please let me know. Be happy to hear from you. So thank you again, and we'll see if we can't do this again soon. Take care.